When you accept no one cares, everything changes. Stoicism. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Adrian's small apartment, casting golden stripes across his worn-out desk. A half-empty coffee mug sat beside an open notebook, filled with scribbles and half-formed thoughts. For weeks, Adrian had been staring at the same words written in bold on the first page. Why does no one care? It was the question that haunted him at work, in friendships, in his quiet evenings scrolling through messages that never came. He had poured himself into people, projects, and promises, expecting something in return: an odd appreciation, acknowledgement. But life, it seemed, responded with silence. Adrian was not alone in this struggle, but like most, he felt as if he were. The loneliness wasn't the absence of people, it was the presence of indifference. He used to believe that if he worked hard enough, people would notice. If he was kind enough, they'd care. But no matter how much effort he gave, recognition never came. Friends forgot his birthday. His manager barely looked up when he presented ideas. The woman he once loved moved on without a word. One night, as he sat on his balcony staring at the city lights, something inside him broke. Not with anger, but with quiet resignation. Maybe no one cares, he whispered. The words felt bitter at first, but strangely freeing. The next day, he wandered into a small bookstore near his apartment, more to escape his thoughts than to find something specific. There, tucked between thick philosophy volumes, he noticed a small worn book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Curiosity led him to buy it. He didn't know why. Maybe it was the word meditations, maybe it was the faint smell of old paper that reminded him of stillness. That night, he opened it and read, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He read the line again, slower this time. It was like a quiet knock on the door of his soul. Power over your mind, not over others, not over their care, their recognition, their opinions. Adrian leaned back in his chair. Could it be that all his suffering came not from what people did or didn't do, but from what he expected them to do? The days that followed became a silent experiment. He decided, almost like an act of rebellion, to live as if no one cared, truly cared. He stopped checking his phone for messages. He stopped waiting for praise at work. He even stopped replaying old conversations in his head, the ones that ended with disappointment. At first, it felt like he was giving up, but soon, something strange happened. He began to feel lighter. When his boss ignored his efforts, he didn't flinch. When a friend forgot to call back, he didn't spiral into self-doubt. When he walked alone through the park on weekends, he didn't feel lonely, he felt free. He realized that the constant craving for care had been his cage. Every expectation was a chain, every desire for validation, a shackle. One evening, he sat by the window, watching rain trickle down the glass. He opened his notebook again and wrote the single line, "When you accept no one cares, everything changes." He paused, then continued, "Because then, you stop performing, you stop begging for love in empty spaces. You begin to act for yourself, not for applause. You learn to do what is right, not what is noticed." The Stoics, he now understood, never meant that no one should care, or that kindness was meaningless. They meant that your peace cannot depend on whether others care. It was liberation, not loneliness. Weeks turned into months. Adrian's life looked the same from the outside. The same job, same apartment, but inside, it was transformed. He started waking up early, not to impress anyone, but because he liked the quiet. He started working harder, not for recognition, but because excellence was its own reward. When a colleague took credit for his idea, he smiled. Let him, he thought. My worth isn't defined by what they see. When he failed a proposal, he shrugged and reminded himself, focus on what's in your control of the effort, not the outcome. The more he practiced this, the more peaceful he became. One night, sitting alone in the soft hum of his apartment, he realized something profound. The world hadn't changed at all. People were still busy, distracted, absorbed in their own stories. But he had changed. He had stopped trying to be seen, and in doing so, he had finally seen himself. The next morning, as he walked to work, he passed a street musician playing a soft melody. A few people threw coins. Most just walked by. The musician played anyway, eyes closed, smiling faintly, as if the music itself was enough. Adrian stopped for a moment and listened. He understood now. Life wasn't about being noticed, it was about creating, acting, living, regardless of who clapped. Later that week, one of his co-workers approached him. "You've been quiet lately," she said. "About a broken bar, you seem happier. What changed?" Adrian smiled gently. "I stopped expecting the world to care." She looked puzzled. "Doesn't that make you lonely?" He shook his head. It makes me free." There was a calm in his voice that words couldn't describe, a stillness that came not from detachment, but from acceptance. He had accepted that most people are too busy fighting their own battles to care about yours, that even love, when given, is fleeting, that the world owes you nothing, and that's precisely what makes your actions meaningful. Because when no one owes you care, every act of kindness becomes pure. When no one owes you praise, every effort becomes honest. Adrian began writing daily reflections in his notebook. Inspired by the Stoics, he read Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. He wrote not to be published, but to understand. One entry read, "Do not wait for the world to see your light. Burn quietly. Burn with purpose. The world may never notice you, but that is not why you shine." He started finding joy in small, ordinary things: a warm cup of coffee, the sound of rain, the feeling of his breath slowing after a long walk. He realized that when you stop expecting others to care, you begin to care for yourself in ways you never did before. There was no longer bitterness in his solitude, only strength. The death of expectation had given birth to a new kind of peace, self-reliance, not arrogance, detachment, not coldness. Months later, he met someone new, a woman named Clara, quiet and thoughtful. She liked the way he listened, the way he didn't try to impress. Their conversations were slow, genuine, unforced. He didn't chase her attention, he let connection happen naturally. For the first time, he wasn't afraid of being unseen because his worth no longer depended on being seen. One evening, Clara asked him, "You always seem calm, no matter what happens. What's your secret?" Adrian smiled softly and said, "I learned that peace begins where expectations end." That night, as he walked home under a sky full of quiet stars, he felt something deeper than happiness. It was contentment, the kind that comes when you no longer fight reality. He had discovered what the Stoics meant all along. Freedom isn't found in being loved or admired. It's found in understanding that life owes you nothing and choosing to live with grace anyway. When you accept that no one cares, everything changes. You stop needing validation. You stop performing for attention. You stop fearing rejection. And in that stillness, you discover something extraordinary: the quiet power of your own soul. Because the truth is, once you stop waiting for others to care, you begin to truly live.